The number one mistake I see with 99% of golfers is not working on your weaknesses. But if you go to the driving range, you go to the simulator and you don't have a plan, it's kind of like those days when you go into the gym and you're like, nah, I don't really know what I'm gonna work out. Maybe it's chest, maybe I'm gonna do cardio, maybe I'm gonna do some abs. Like if you don't really have a plan, it's never that good of a workout. The same thing goes for the golf course. We need to work on our form. You wanna build a more consistent swing. But if you're at the driving range and you're only using your training aid, it's gonna be really awkward when you get to the golf course because you kind of had training wheels on. Are you struggling in practice? Does it feel like you're actually getting worse sometimes? If so, you might be making one or several of these golf practice mistakes. Today, I'm gonna take you through some of the most common mistakes that I see at the simulator or at the driving range that are holding you back from playing your best golf. If you're someone that finally wants to get better, break 90, break 80, maybe even break par, we have to practice the right way. And after playing this game for 25 plus years, I know I've made every mistake out there, and I wanna help you avoid them so that way you can speed up success and finally play to your potential. The number one mistake I see with 99% of golfers is not working on your weaknesses. Most players love to go to the driving range or simulator and just work on what they're good at. But if you are someone that does want to improve and you want to lower that handicap, we have to spend time on our weaknesses. Now, the easiest way to identify those weaknesses is to track your stats. That's why I love using Arcos Golf or Decade to track your stats, figure out your weaknesses, and then when you are in practice, you know exactly what to work on. Maybe it's driving, maybe it's irons, maybe it's short game, maybe it's putting. We have to figure out what our weaknesses are and then spend the majority of our practice time on them so we can turn those weaknesses into strengths. The second golf practice mistake that I know I've made way too many times to count is not having a plan. So this is something I talk about in my book, Wicked Smart Golf, which is available on Amazon or Audible. But if you go to the driving range, you go to the simulator and you don't have a plan, it's kind of like those days when you go into the gym and you're like, nah, I don't really know what I'm gonna work out. Maybe it's chest, maybe I'm gonna do cardio, maybe I'm gonna do some abs. Like if you don't really have a plan, it's never that good of a workout. The same thing goes for the golf course. We have to make sure we have a plan. So if you track your stats and know your weaknesses, then you can create a plan. And that way when you go to the range or you go to the short game area or you go to the simulator, you're actually spending your time wisely. There's nothing worse than leaving the range feeling frustrated and feeling like you actually got worse. So please make sure you always have a plan. It doesn't have to be super elaborate either. It can be something like, hey, I have 30 minutes. I'm gonna spend 15 minutes putting, 15 minutes chipping. Or if you have 60 minutes, it might look like this. 20 minutes at the putting green, 20 minutes at the range working on your drills that you've got from a coach, and then the last 20 minutes going through your full pre-shot routine to help your mental game. Just make sure you have a plan so that way you're not wasting time and money in practice. The third golf practice mistake that I know I've made is not spending enough time with your wedges. If you really want to take your game to the next level, we have to dial in our short game. You want to make your lob wedge or sand wedge, whatever one is your highest lofted one, your best friend, because no matter how good you get, you're always going to miss greens and regulation. And so we have to make sure we can scramble and save shots. Plus, when you're in trouble off the tee and you have to chip out and then you have to wedge on, a lot of times this club can help you save pars or at least get away with a bogey instead of a double or worse. Plus, make sure to go to the chipping green. I feel like no one's ever there. It's always empty and it's an easy way for you to start saving shots. Make sure to watch this video next where I actually go through the 3 short game shots that every golfer needs. The fourth practice mistake that I see a lot is just not practicing at home. I know that you are busy, you have a family, you got a job, you got a lot going on, but when you are at home sometimes, whether you're just watching the game or you're just kind of hanging out, spend some time working on stuff at home, specifically your putting. Invest in an at-home putting green. That way you can practice those short ones at home. So even if life is too busy, you can't get to the golf course, you can still work on that stroke. Don't forget, putting is one of the key pillars to playing wicked smart and responsible for 30% or more of all the shots you hit during the round. So spend time at home working on your stroke. You can use training aids, you can use putting mirrors. Get consistent with your putting. I love my new Prime Putt mat. I use it all the time and I can't recommend having a putting green at home or your office so that way you're never forgetting about your short game. The next mistake I see a lot is just using too many training aids, because don't get me wrong, we need to work on our form, you want to build a more consistent swing, But if you're at the driving range and you're only using your training aid, it's gonna be really awkward when you get to the golf course because you kind of had training wheels on. You have to make sure that you use these training aids intentionally. So use it for 5 swings and then 5 swings without. 5 swings without. Make sure to use training aids correctly, especially in the off season. This is a great time if you're trying to change your swing, but ultimately do not rely on them too much or it's gonna be really hard to trust your golf swing on the course. The next golf practice mistake is one that happens way too often again, and that is neglecting the putting green. If you really are serious about shooting lower scores this year, please spend more time at the short game area. We have to work on that putting. So yes, at home is great, but obviously at the putting green is a lot better because you can work on those lag putts, which are essential to not 3-putting and getting the most out of your game. When you're on the putting green, make sure to do 3 different things. Number 1 is to spend more time in that 30 to 40 foot range because that's gonna be your average length birdie putt, and we don't wanna 3-putt those. The second thing to do is spend more time on those short putts, specifically breaking putts, some left to right, some right to left, uphill, downhill. Practice as many of those 3 to 6 footers as you can so that way you have more confidence from short range. Finally, when you're at the putting green, go through Decade Golf and use their simulated putting in the app. It's an amazing way to get the most out of your game. And if you're interested in Decade, make sure to use the code WICKEDSMART and you'll save 20% on your subscription. The next golf practice mistake that most golfers make is never recording your swing. Now, you don't have to record every single shot in every single practice session, but you do want to record your swing sometimes so that way you get to know your game. Otherwise, you're just going to rely on coaches too much, or you're going to have no idea how to fix your swing when things get off. So you want to record it, and you also want to document your journey. I'm so glad I have hundreds, if not thousands of videos of my swing from the last 7 years, from 2017 all the way to 2024, literally hundreds of videos, and it's so cool to see your progress. So make sure you document your journey so 1, you can actually figure out how to fix your flaws, and 2, be proud of how far you've come because chances are you weren't very good when you got started. I know I wasn't, and you're probably a lot better now. So give yourself some props and start documenting the journey. The next golf practice mistake that you might be making is that you're just not taking enough breaks. If you're just rapid firing a jumbo bucket and just raking ball after ball after ball, chances are you're not really learning and you're gonna get worn down quickly. Plus, when is the last time you hit 15 7-irons in a row on the golf course? Probably never. So again, we wanna make sure practice is efficient and actually close to what it's gonna happen on the course. So after you get warmed up, go through your bag, hit a 7-iron at this target, take a break, hit a wedge at this target, then hit a driver at this target. Mix it up. Take some breaks, especially when you're trying to make swing changes, because that'll have a huge impact on your mind being able to understand what you're trying to work on and hopefully make those changes faster and not go through a slump. The next mistake that way too many golfers make, and I know I used to do too, is avoiding the sand. But if you're never going in the bunker, chances are you don't have the right form, technique, or confidence. Then when your ball finds the sand on the golf course, it's easy to get super flustered and have no confidence. Maybe it takes you a few to get out, maybe you skull it over. A lot of bad things can happen. Amateurs are just not very good out of the bunker. However, I think that we can fix this or at least improve by simply developing one stock bunker shot. So spend some time in there. Maybe it's 15 minutes a week, maybe it's a couple times a month, but don't neglect it. Otherwise, you're gonna walk into the bunker on the course with a lot of fear, dread, and doubt. So practice your bunker game. Trust me, it'll have a huge impact on your confidence. The final mistake that you have to avoid is worrying about the opinion of others. When you're at a busy driving range, it's easy to worry about what this person's gonna think about my swing or this person's gonna think about my short game, but at the end of the day, it does not matter. You cannot worry about the opinion of others on the golf course or in life. If you really want to get the most out of your game, you have to go out there and know that golf is a steep learning curve, and the only way you're going to get better though is by putting in the reps. Not to mention, no one is judging you because they're trying to figure out what they're doing with their own swing as well. No one is ever going to master this game, so please stop worrying about the opinion of others and put in the work. Next up, make sure you avoid these common warm-up mistakes that a lot of golfers make before the round that might be hurting your chances of playing your best golf.